Most of all, our ladies and gentlemen, in the upstand, which is right in front of your places, which is all the way around the edge of the boat. Please keep everything that you want to keep on your body inside the profile of the boat at all times.
The English Midlands. It might not seem like the kind of place you'd find a massive fortress of the ancient Britons. This is Shakespeare country. In my mind at least, mostly associated with Civil War battlefields, stately homes and the National Trust. And yet, just like any English county, Worcestershire most definitely has its ancient history too. For this is Tolkien country. Ancient barrows coat the landscape, like this one near where I grew up. Mostly forgotten, overgrown relics of the early Bronze Age, more than 4,000 years ago. That transitional time between the Stone Age and a new age of metal. And before all that even, stone circles and temples likely coated the land too. Yet this region, in terms of its ancient heritage, was too successful. The ground being recycled over and over again by hundreds of generations. For this is some of the best farmland on the island. Highly prized. It takes only a very short time for ancient sites to be eroded away by cattle grazing. But most dangerous of all is the plough. It boggles the mind to think of not only the ancient hill forts lost over the centuries to the plough, but artefacts too. Destroyed without ever having been pulled out of the ground. BREEDON on the hill in Leicestershire is one place. A massive fort once. Now, only a tiny section of the fortifications remain. Kinver Edge is another. Coated in heather today, at risk from mountain bikers and barely perceptible to passers-by. The Midlands even has a reputation for not being great for hill forts. The Osprey book on the subject tells us that, suggesting that there isn't much to see. But as far as I'm concerned, that reputation is an unfair one. The Midlands isn't remote, it's in the centre of everything. And generally these forts only survive when they're out on the periphery. And yet, there is an exception to all that. Which makes its survival all the more extraordinary. This is British camp. I've been coming here since childhood. I vividly remember pretending to be a Roman as we marched to the top on family expeditions. It was a lot bigger back then. From the ground, this place invites awe. But from the sky, it looks unreal. It's a sight my 8-year-old self couldn't have dreamed of. The English Midlands? It just doesn't seem right. It's more like something from Peru or Mexico. And yet, there it is. And it's not even particularly famous. But there it is. And I'm grateful for it. Let's get to the top. The Malvern Hills sprawl along the borders of two English counties. Herefordshire on the one side stretches off to the west. Worcestershire to the east. These hills are a fixture on the horizon all around. As far as Wales on the one side and the distant East Midlands on the other. And on one edge of those hills sits one of the most impressive Iron Age hill forts found anywhere on the island. Definitely in the top 10. Built in the first millennium BC by successive generations of Celts, this could only have been a capital fit for kings. Take that, Osprey. But why camp? It doesn't look very temporary. Well, the name camp is one used all over the Midlands and the rest of England for fortresses of the ancients. The name seems a little unfair. Call it the Giant's Castle and people would be flocking from all over the world. And of course, this place, just looking at it, it's far from temporary. Archaeology has conclusively shown that these massive earthworks and ditches were built up over hundreds of years. There is an argument that this site was only occupied at certain times of the year by a largely transitory people. The Celts often living a pastoralist, semi-nomadic lifestyle. The main justification for the argument being that living here all year round would have been quite a miserable experience, with exposure to the elements and harsh winds in winter. But I'm not so sure. I've seen much harsher hill forts and much more intense conditions for ancient settlements. But we do know that many groups would spend one part of the year in one place and the rest in another. So far, it's still a debated point, and in reality, despite hundreds of years of research, still not a huge amount is known about these colossal monuments. It's certainly an awesome place for a day out though. I'm here with my dad, and it's great to be back. As we head up past ancient gates onto the ramparts, the sheer scale of the place dawns on me again. My area of specialty tends to be the early Middle Ages, and forts during that time are so much smaller than this. The tiny Norman Motte and Bailey perched at the very summit of just one of the peaks here hammers that point home. Early medieval sites were often even smaller. Rather than a continual pressing forward, history ebbs and flows. Populations grow and rise and fall again. The engineering of those Celtic ancestors was on a much larger scale than their early medieval descendants. Though, in all fairness, despite being given the same name, hill fort. They did have very different uses. Rather than simply a lair for a warrior band, Iron Age hill forts developed to hold an entire community in times of war. During the Iron Age, if a people were conquered, every man, woman and child stood at risk of being killed or sold into slavery. A fate suffered by so many untold tens of thousands when the Romans came to Britain. In the early Middle Ages, on the other hand, it seems that warlords fought over the common folk, and the food and taxes that they could provide. Thus, in the 5th, 6th and 7th centuries, when some of those Iron Age hill forts were reoccupied, and others built anew, warbands rarely even numbered in the hundreds. Such had times fallen. Looking out from the summit, the nearby fort at BREDON can clearly be seen. That's not BREDON on the hill, just to be confusing. And not far away is Kinver Edge. Probably the smoke rising from forts even further away would have been visible too. In their day, these were immensely impressive places to see and to be seen. We walk through the ramparts of the medieval Motte and Bailey. Barely recognisable now had we not known it was there, perched atop one of the twin peaks. Like many places in the country, medieval folk building on long existent foundations. Yes, British camp has always had a certain allure for me. When I came here in 2015, after a hiatus of some 15 years, I was going through a transitional stage in my own life. After years of dead-end call centre jobs, I'd just come back from a summer in rural Honduras. I had no idea what I was doing with my life. Begrudgingly beginning to accept my fate as a teacher. Such is the life of a history graduate. History? Why are you studying that? What job is that going to get you? I'd heard it constantly since I started my degree. And by and large, it was true. Out of hundreds of history graduates in my year, I don't know anyone who has a job in a historical field that isn't a teacher. So that summer, I came to British camp. As always, when faced with the grandeur of the ancient past, I was filled with awe, and I posted on social media about it. I used a hashtag that I'd occasionally posted over the years: History Time. And then it was back to another series of late-stage capitalism jobs. The teaching could wait another year or two. I still vividly remember doing that post, and bizarrely, that is from where the History Time you see today stems. And by extension, this channel, which is really just me riffing about history. Anyway, now it's nearly 2022. So much has changed since that day. And I wanted to come back here to make a toast to my past self. I didn't know it at the time, but I was already on my way. So here's to you, mid-20s, dead-end, confused Pete. You've got a long way to go yet. And here's a message to all of you history students out there. Step by step, just keep working towards those goals, day by day. Like me, you may have no idea where you're going. But trust me, you are headed somewhere. You never know what's going to happen. And for God's sake, don't let anyone else get in your way. Or yourself. You've got this. Now crack on.